very diligent with my colors and have a very good understanding of how Photoshop works in order to make these very quick changes. But with the adjustment layers, I can make them on the fly, and if something's not working properly, I can just do it just like so. And actually what I may do is apply an adjustment layer to this particular thing, or what I can do is actually multiply this. There we go. Well, you know what? I'm still not happy with it. This is starting to bother me. And not so much, but I'm a perfectionist. I want this to look cool. You can also run through the layer things and apply different layer color styles. Overlay, soft light, hard light. And really what they are is, imagine that aside from normal, all of these are translucent. So that multiplies the color. You'll find a lot of applications and special effects call for the multiply color layer style to be used. So what I'm going to do is actually keep this up, and I'm actually just going to go to normal. And what we're going to do is going to go to the adjustment layer, go to hue saturation, go OK, and I'm going to darken this, and I'm also going to saturate it just a bit. Darken this up, and now I'm going to put on a layer mask. Okay, and I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to just give it some specular highlights, just a little bit, to make it look, because we actually modified this a little bit, and we're going to go in and tweak this just so. And actually, because this is very lit here, I'm going to go in and lighten this up just a bit in through there. And I should probably spend a little bit more time with this. And I'm going to go in and scooch this a bit more. Possibly rotate this. You'll notice that this little point here is actually the rotation point for the free transform tool, so I can move this wherever, and I will be able to rotate it from that point. We're just tweaking this a little bit here, and for the sake of being done, I'm going to kind of kill this right now, you know, and just say, okay, fine, that's the way I want it. I would probably play with this for a very long time just to get it exactly so. Yeah, it still bothers me there, but that's fine, we'll deal with that later. Maybe move that across like so. That's better. Anyway, so now we've got our guitar, it's all lit up. Now what about this background? Okay, so the background is very simple to do. We're gonna go, I'm just gonna close out this guitar, I don't want to save that. And we want like a nice curtain background. There's my background there, which actually is just the back of a jacket. If you don't really have to take a picture of a curtain. If you want a curtain, take a picture of any type of fabric you wish. I'm going to open it up in Photoshop, and again we can adjust, you know, to the colors just to roughly match what you want. And I'm going to go okay. I'm going to open the image. All right. If it ever opens, convert it, because I want it to match my colors. And now I'm going to go and really what I don't really want this entire piece. I only want half of it. I want to snag this half right here. So what I'm going to do is use the pen tool, and I'm going to kind of cut a line right along this chunk right here. Okay, so what I'm first thing is going to do though is I'm going to go to my background layer, double click on it, make it a layer. Okay, now you'll see why in a minute. I'm going to go in, I'm going to take, I'll take the pen tool because I can get a better curve out of it. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a point here, and I'm just going to curve this roughly just like so, right? Pow, 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 like that. And actually I better adjust this a bit to grab everything. So here's the chunk that I don't want. I'm going to hit the Apple key, make a selection, okay, go down here, and I'm going to delete it. Goodbye. Okay, deselect. So now that's all I have. I quickly deleted that item, and I'm just going to drag this over, bulk, like so. And again, because this is 16-bit and my ad is in 8-bit, you are going to get a depth difference, which is fine. So, looks kind of rough, doesn't it? That's okay. So what we're going to do It looks kind of, it's a nice way to bring in texture too. So again, this is where my my horizon line comes into effect, is I'm going to throw these curtains and roughly line it up with the horizon line. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to blur this just a bit. So I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to use the Gaussian blur, a little too much. And you want to blur it for two reasons. Number one, to kind of get rid of some of the texture, and number two, as you're learning in photography class, you're learning about depth of field. When a camera is focusing on a particular object in the foreground, if you have anything other than a wide-angle lens, the background is going to be slightly out of focus. You can use this to your advantage in Photoshop when you're compositing images to blur the background and draw your eye on the actual subject, on the object you want it to be focused on. For example, the guitar. You don't want your eye to be drawn to the texture in the jacket, in the curtain itself, so we're going to blur it. And we're going to blur it a bit more, just like so. I'm going to keep it nice and soft. I'm going to go OK. Okay, so now we got that. That looks nice. So now what we're going to do is we are going to Apple J. We're going to duplicate that. You'll see over here you got another layer. I'm not naming these layers. I'm a very bad person. I should be naming these layers. And well, let's do that right now. Let's call this, oops, let's call this curtain. If I can get her to name. Come on now. This is what happens when you go too fast. It's very hard for me to spell correctly. Usually I just mash my keys down and that's what it becomes. So now this is called curtain. I'm going to Apple J this, right? And I'm going to Apple T, okay, for the free transform tool. And I'm going to use the control tool and I'm going to flip it horizontal, right? So now I've got a duplicate. Okay, now it's very hard to see because you got black going on everywhere. I'm gonna pretty much say, well, let's drag this right over to here. So okay, so now here comes the cool part. I'm gonna select both of them and I'm gonna Apple E, merge them together. So now it becomes one. So now you see there's my fake out curtain, complete with texture and everything. Okay, so now it's like, well, we actually have to arrange this. It looks kind of weird because of course the spotlight is behind the curtain when it always is in front. So I'm going to take this and drag this right into the background layer. And of course above, there we go. So now you can see what's going on. There's your texture, there's your background. Looking pretty cool, I think. I'm actually impressing myself for a half-hour demo. Anyway, so say if I want to change the color, right? Well then, where do we go? We go up to the adjustment layers. So we go to new adjustment layer. You can do a selective color, and all these things you're going to figure out on your own, or play with. Let's do hue saturation because it is very nice and quick. And again, use previous layer to create clipping mask. Keep that turned on. Gonna go OK. Now, saturation. See what happens? Isn't that beautiful? You just change it and it's done. And you can mess with the hue, and the hue just runs through the colors in the visual spectrum. You can mess with the lightness again, make it light, make it dark, or you could go here, colorize. Colorize applies one color to the entire image. So I can beef it up, saturate it like crazy. Okay, bring the lightness up, and you'll see when I bring up the lightness, the detail kind of goes away, so you have to be a little careful. So I'm gonna bring her down just a bit like so. The hue is, you know, again, I can change whatever color I wish. I want to keep this red, I want this nice and rich. Go OK. Look at that, we're almost done. This is looking pretty cool. So now what we're gonna do is we need a reflection, because of course the floor is nice and polished. We want a polished reflection. We need to reflect this. So I'm going to again select, shift select both of these guys, do Apple G, group that. Gonna name this curtain, and if it's spelled right or spelled wrong, I apologize in advance. So, and you'll notice that we made a folder inside a folder. You can make folders inside folders inside folders. You can also apply a mask to a folder and do whatever you wish to it. We're not going to do that right now, but just letting you know. So now what we can do is we want to make a duplicate of that. So we're going to duplicate the group, Okay.